And now, Athenians, I am not going to argue for my own sake, as you may think, but for yours, that you may not sin against the God by condemning me, who am his gift to you. For if you kill me, you will not easily find a successor to me, who, if I may use such a ludicrous figure of speech, am a sort of gadfly, given to the state by God. And the state is a great and noble steed, who is tardy in his motions, owing to his very size, and requires to be stirred into life. I am that gadfly which God has attached to the state, and all day long and in all places am always fastened upon you, arousing and persuading and reproaching you. You will not easily find another like me, and therefore I would advise you to spare me. I dare say that you may feel out of temper, like a person who is suddenly awakened from sleep, and you think that you might easily strike me dead, as Anytus advises, and then you would sleep on for the remainder of your lives, unless God in his care of you sent you another gadfly. When I say that I am given to you by God, the proof of my mission is this. If I had been like other men, I should not have neglected all my own concerns, or patiently seen the neglect of them during all these years, and have been doing yours, coming to you individually like a father or elder brother, exhorting you to regard virtue. Such conduct, I say, would be unlike human nature. If I had gained anything, or if my exhortations had been paid, there would have been some sense in my doing so. But now, as you will perceive, not even the impudence of my accusers dares to say that I have ever exacted or sought pay of anyone, and that they have no witness, and I have a sufficient witness to the truth of what I say, my poverty. Hey, what's up? It's Phoenix, and welcome back to my channel. I encourage you to hit that like button, to subscribe, and to share with all of your friends. You can subscribe today for more quality content from Phoenix. I encourage you to check out the playlist tab for further videos and more videos. And I'm very excited today because I'm going to talk about the Apology as written by Plato. And indeed, welcome back to my philosopher series. So let's dive right in without further ado. Socrates was executed by the state. This definitely has a heavy weight to it, this phrase, this idea, but Socrates was not popular among his fellow men. And as you know, we've talked a bit about Socrates and how Plato characterizes Socrates. And there is a very real way in which Socrates was unpopular because he was daring to find the truth. He was searching for the truth, and he was willing to go to places that no one had been before. Now, this is not an easy thing to do, of course, and there definitely is a lot of complexity involved in such a quest, and certainly you will make a lot of enemies, and Socrates made a lot of enemies. I mean, if you think about it, he was literally challenging politicians and powerful people and rhetoricians and the sophists, and he was talking with poets, and he was talking with writers, and he was talking with a bunch of other people, and he definitely ruffled some feathers, as they say. The Apology is a beautiful book written by Plato, and it features Socrates' defense, his defense against the state of Athens, who are trying to condemn him. And as you may know, Socrates is executed by the state and is killed because he was daring to find the truth and daring to uncover complicated truths in the world. And they did not like him, and they saw him as a threat, and therefore they removed him. But Socrates nonetheless has a very impassioned plea to reason and to fairness and to life itself and justice. And it is frustrating to think that Socrates was on the right side of history, but that nobody knew what that meant, and how that complicates things, and how people made the wrong decision by killing him. But that was what they did. And so Socrates provided a philosophical account of what he has been trying to accomplish and what he has been trying to do. Again, there is the distinction between appearance versus reality itself, and Socrates in this case is looking right through the executioners and the people that are trying to condemn Socrates to death. He is daring to look through the guys and to see what actually is the truth. And no doubt he made a lot of enemies. Now, as you'll remember, I opened up with a quote about Socrates as being a gadfly, and this is one of the most famous metaphors throughout philosophy, which is the idea that to do philosophy you must be a gadfly, perhaps in the way of Socrates, and this includes being very curious and provoking people in an intellectual way and challenging them and challenging their point of view. And this can get very, very complicated very fast, but that was basically what Socrates was doing. He was daring to question things, and he was daring to upset other people to try to get at the truth. Oftentimes, this actually goes against the flow of our culture today, where things are very much going with the flow, and we are often told to not upset anything. But it does make you wonder, was Socrates right? Was it better that he searched for the truth? Obviously, this is a dilemma that we've talked about before, and there is much to it. And in my personal opinion, I think that Socrates was doing the right thing, even if he was punished for it. And that can be a difficult thing, but Socrates knew that he was going to do the right thing, to the best of his ability. It is very powerful to think that Socrates had a bit of a divine spark in him, and Socrates does talk in the Apology about how he basically feels that he is channeling a voice and that he is channeling a deep truth that people need to know about. And what's interesting is that if somebody did this today, they would be regarded as crazy. And for all intents and purposes, this is what was happening in Socrates' present day, where they thought he was crazy. But Socrates was living true to something that really meant a lot to him, which was this voice, or the other term for it is daemon, which is a kind of spiritual guide or a being who helps someone reach maturity, whether intellectual, emotional, or otherwise. And it's crazy to think that Socrates definitely had a vision, and he was trying to stay true to that vision. Now, the Apology is a beautiful text, as I have mentioned, and the reason is because Socrates offers a lot of beautiful argumentation about why sincerity is so important and how it is so easy for us to criticize sincere people and assume that they're not telling the truth and assume that they have ulterior motives. But Socrates was really just trying to tell the truth, and he was trying to live his life in the most engaging and full way possible. And he wasn't trying to cause trouble necessarily. He was literally just trying to get at the truth and understand himself, understand the world, and understand other people. So I definitely encourage you to read the Apology if you get some time to do so. So, as I said, Socrates also challenged the Sophists, and the Sophists were, if you remember, they asked for money. They charged for money from people to be able to offer their rhetoric, and Socrates did not do this, and it's very powerful that in the quote that I read, he describes that he never took money. He never took money from anyone, and this shows that his own poverty was really the ultimate sacrifice for truth, that he knew a lot of different things, but he nonetheless was humble about it, and he didn't force answers, and he didn't force people to pay him for his services, and he paid a price for that, and it's really powerful to think about what he was willing to do. Also, Socrates is accused of being atheist in the Apology, but this is actually far from true, because even though he may have questioned the religious system at the time, he was actually very pious, and there are a lot of examples in this throughout the Apology, one of which is just his statements themselves, with him saying that he still very much is not atheist, and that he has deference and respect for God and for the gods, and that he wasn't going to change that he was not atheist, that he was just very curious and he wanted to know what the truth was. Actually, Socrates in his life was very pious, and that's powerful to think about as well. So what do we do with this? Is Socrates saying that we should die for our truths? Is Socrates saying that we should be executed by the state if we are on the right side of history? This is definitely a complicated matter. There are many people who would assume that the truth is never important, that the truth of our reality and of the world doesn't matter, and that's why they have more what could be called pragmatic ways of going about things, so to speak. And that doesn't necessarily have to be pejorative, but it is a specific way of being practical about the world rather than thinking about what is actually there. And that is definitely a powerful thing to think about. And I personally wrestle with this question of whether or not I should seek the truth or seek what's convenient. It's a very difficult thing to try to figure out because in my experience in life, I have been punished for a variety of ways for trying to appeal to reason, to the reason of other people, by trying to tell the truth as I understand it, and also being respectful and deferent and yet still being misunderstood and miscategorized. Of course, we could always argue that Socrates was not a hero, but I personally think, based off the account in the Apology, that Socrates was very genuine, and he was sincere, and he was a humble person. And I hope that we can all strive to search for the truth in that way. I think that these things are very important, and I think that they're important to think about. I'm not saying that we should never have rhetoric, so to speak, that we should never have persuasive arguments. There might be times, in fact, where we should say nothing. And these are definitely things I wrestle with. But I do think there are times as well, as Socrates bravely did, to tell the truth as you understand it, and to continue to search for that no matter what people may think of you, and even if they punish you. As a side note, Socrates was pretty close, was an older person when he was giving his statement in the Apology, and he was about 70 years old, I believe, and he knew that he didn't have very many years left to live, so the punishment, much to Socrates' advantage, was he was on the verge of dying anyway, and so it was definitely less punishing in that sense. But as Socrates had always stated, he didn't understand why the state had to be a place of punishment instead of instruction. I guess all we can do is hope that Socrates didn't suffer too much. Certainly he knew himself well enough to know that he could overcome anything and that he could confront difficult things, and I think that's very powerful. So yeah, let's all strive to tell the truth in the best way that we can. I'm Phoenix, and I hope that you enjoyed this talk today on Socrates, and there will be much more to come. The Apology, as I've stated, is a very beautiful text, and I very much am glad that I was able to talk about it today. So yeah, I will see you around. There is much more to come, so keep a lookout, and I will see you next time.